kind of decisions that seem almost invisible when you make them. The sort that slip into a Tuesday afternoon or a quiet Sunday morning, and yet end up shaping everything that comes after. A decade, 10 years, can be changed by just one moment of resolve. Think about it. 10 years sounds like a long time, but if you live long enough, you realize how quickly 10 years can slip through your fingers. The question becomes, how do you make these years count? It starts with a single choice. Sometimes a decade is shaped by something that looks small at the start. Maybe you choose to walk into a bookstore instead of the coffee shop. Maybe you decide to listen in on a conversation, to take a class you weren't sure about, to shake hands with someone at a meeting instead of slipping out early. One decision to learn something new. One decision to quit something that's dragging you down. One decision to try again after you've failed. Those moments don't come with fireworks or trumpets. No one stands up to applaud. You might not even remember them a week later. But years from now, you look back and realize that was the day everything started to change. You see, success doesn't begin with luck. It's not about being in the right place at the right time. People love to talk about lucky breaks. Someone says, if only I'd gotten that opportunity, or if only I'd been born into a different family. But most of the time, what looks like luck from a distance is just a series of good decisions, stacked one after another, until they build something strong. If you ask someone who's made a real turnaround, most of the time they'll tell you it started with a decision, not a guarantee. Not a promise that everything would be easy, just a moment of clarity when they said, enough is enough. From today, I will change direction. The direction doesn't have to be drastic. Sometimes it's just a degree or two to the left or right. You wake up, and instead of saying, I can't, you say, I'll try. Instead of thinking, maybe later, you say, why not now? Over time, those little shifts compound until you're living a different life entirely. Picture a ship leaving the harbor. If the captain changes course by just a few degrees, that ship will arrive at a very different destination 10 years from now. The same is true for you. You don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight, but you do have to make the decision to turn, to learn, to begin. The power of a single decision is that it puts you back in the driver's seat. No more blaming the winds or the tides. You grab the wheel, even if your hands are shaking a little. You decide what matters, and you act on it. The first step to changing your decade is not magic, and it's not complicated. It's simply this: decide. Decide that the next 10 years will not be an accident. Decide that you'll take ownership starting today. That's the beginning. That's the spark. The rest will follow, but not until you make the first move. You don't have to see the whole road, just enough to take the next step with confidence. That's the power of a single decision. So what happens after you make that first decision? Because one decision by itself is powerful, yes, but it's the next choice and the one after that that begins to shape the landscape of your life. You see, every decision compounds. It multiplies. It builds on the one before, just like interest in the bank. And the result, over a decade, can be astonishing. Think about your daily habits. Not the dramatic moments, but the little routines. What you eat, what you read, how you spend your spare hour, who you spend your time with. Each of those is a decision, and over time, those choices become habits, and those habits become your character. Let's say someone decides, just for today, to spend a little less than they earn. That's a small thing. You might not notice a change at the end of the day or even the end of the week, but do it every day. And soon, there's a little extra in the bank. Let it compound for a decade, and suddenly there's a sense of freedom, of options that wasn't there before. The same goes for learning. If you pick up a book for 15 minutes each night, it may not seem like much. But over 10 years, that's thousands of pages, new ideas, new skills, new opportunities. Most people underestimate the power of small, repeated choices. On the other hand, the wrong habits compound too. Spend more than you earn, just a little, every day, and you won't notice the difference at first. Skip learning, skip growing, choose comfort over challenge. Just once or twice, and nothing bad happens right away. But over 10 years, that's the difference between frustration and fulfillment, between regret and satisfaction. You don't drift into greatness. Nobody wakes up one morning suddenly on top of the mountain. The climb is made one step at a time, and every step is a choice. You decide into greatness, one decision at a time, one habit at a time. There's no shortcut. Now, the truth is, most people don't lose their way all at once. It happens by inches. A compromise here, a delay there. Just this once. It won't matter. But over a decade, those little detours add up. You look up, and the scenery is not what you hoped for. But the same is true for progress. You keep making those right choices, day after day, even when nobody's watching. And they add up. You build momentum. You start to see small wins, and those wins give you the confidence to keep going. It's the pattern of choices that matters. People sometimes say, well, I made a mistake. Everyone does. The question is not whether you make a mistake, but whether you let it become your new direction. A single misstep doesn't ruin a decade unless you keep stepping in the same direction. The power is in the compounding. Decide what you want your decade to look like, and then build the habits that will get you there. Make the little decisions that support the big vision. Over time, your choices become your results. So, the real secret isn't luck or talent or timing. It's the daily decisions, the little disciplines, the consistent effort. One day you'll look back and see that your life didn't change all at once. It changed one choice at a time. That's the magic of compounding decisions, and it's available to anyone willing to make the effort, every day, over time. Life has a way of bringing us to a crossroads, not just once, but many times. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's loud, but there it is, a fork in the road. The choice between comfort or challenge, now or later, easy or excellent. These are the moments that test the quality of your decisions and the strength of your resolve. Every season brings its own fork. Maybe it's a job offer that asks you to stretch, or a relationship that calls for a new commitment, or the decision to step out and start something of your own. Each time, the road splits. One side offers comfort, what's familiar, what's safe, what won't rock the boat. The other side, challenge, uncertainty, work that's hard but meaningful. Here's what experience has taught me. The hard decision today makes the next decade easier. The easy decision today makes the next decade harder. If you choose comfort now, you may find discomfort waiting for you down the road. Missed opportunities, regrets, potential left unexplored. But if you choose the challenge, put in the work, take the chance, you lay the groundwork for a life that gets better as the years go by. Ask yourself, where are the forks in your life right now? Is there a path you've been avoiding because it looks too steep? Is there a conversation you keep postponing? A new skill you've been putting off? A goal you keep setting aside? That's the fork. The choice isn't always easy, but it is always yours. Sometimes the fork isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as choosing to stay up late watching television or going to bed so you can rise early and work on your dream. It's deciding to save rather than spend, to read rather than watch the television, to reach out rather than withdraw. Each of these is a fork in the road, and each shapes your decade in ways you might not see right away. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with comfort from time to time. Rest matters. Enjoyment has its place. But if comfort becomes your default, growth will never be your result. Greatness requires moving through discomfort, the challenge, the stretch, the willingness to do what others won't. These are the things that mark the path to a better future. The world rewards excellence, not just effort. Excellence is almost always found on the harder road. It asks for more, but it also gives more. More fulfillment, more pride in what you've accomplished, more options when the next fork comes along. And here's another truth. You won't always get it right. Sometimes you'll choose the easy path and feel the consequences later. But the decade is not decided in a single moment. It's a series of decisions, and every day brings a new fork, a new chance to choose better. When you stand at the fork in the road, ask yourself, will this choice make my next 10 years easier or harder? Will it take me closer to who I want to become or farther away? The honest answer will guide your steps. So when you reach that fork, pause, think, then have the courage to choose the road that leads to your potential, not just your comfort. Your decade will thank you for it. If you want your decisions to last, if you want them to hold up when pressure comes, anchor them in something deeper than your emotions. Emotions are wonderful, but they make a poor compass. They rise and fall with the weather, with the news, with a word from a friend or a stranger. But values endure. Values keep you steady in a world that's always changing. I've watched people set goals in a burst of excitement, only to abandon them the first time circumstances shift. Why? Because excitement fades. Values don't. If your decisions are built on excitement alone, you'll keep starting over, round, and round. But if your decisions are grounded in principle, you can weather almost any storm. So what are values? Values are the principles you live by, even when it's inconvenient. They're the standards you set for yourself, not just when things are easy, but especially when things get tough. Honesty, integrity, kindness, discipline. These are the kinds of values that outlast trends and temptation. Ask yourself, what do I stand for? What matters most? If you don't know your values before the test comes, you'll be tempted to borrow someone else's, or worse, let the world decide for you. That's a risky place to be. Because when you're under pressure, you don't rise to the level of your hopes. You fall to the level of your preparation. Preparation means knowing your values ahead of time. Here's something I've learned. Life will test your values, not your intentions. People intend to do well, to keep their promises, to stay on the path. But when things get tough, when money gets tight, when criticism comes, when time runs short, it's your values that hold you steady. If you've decided ahead of time, this is who I am and this is what I do, then the world can throw what it wants and you'll still find your way. Sometimes it's tempting to let the situation decide for you. Someone offers a shortcut. A friend suggests you bend the rules just this once. The crowd goes one way and your values ask you to go another. In those moments, you find out who you are. It's not always comfortable. It's not always popular, but it's always worth it. If you let emotion steer your decisions, your course will keep changing. Today it's this way, tomorrow it's that way. But if you let values lead, you chart a straight course. Others may question you, misunderstand you, even criticize you. But at the end of the day, you answer to yourself. You sleep well because you know you've acted with integrity. So take some time. Decide what matters before you need it. Write it down if you have to. When you face a tough choice, ask, does this line up with my values or just my feelings? Choose values. Feelings change. Values endure. Let your values be the compass that guides your decisions for the next decade. Build your life around principles that stand the test of time. Do that, and your direction will be clear even when the way ahead is not. One of the most powerful forces shaping your future is the counsel you keep. Who you listen to, who you let influence your thinking, your standards, your habits, has a bigger impact than most people realize. The next 10 years won't just be shaped by what you decide, but by whose voices you allow to speak into those decisions. It's easy to underestimate the quiet power of influence. Sometimes it's subtle, a casual word from a friend, a piece of advice from a coworker, a story you hear over lunch. Sometimes it's strong, the expectations of family, the pressure of a group, the example of someone you look up to. But make no mistake, every day someone is shaping your perspective. The question is, are you choosing your influences or are they choosing you? The wrong voices can dilute your potential. If you surround yourself with people who make excuses, settle for less, or lower their standards, it's only a matter of time before you do the same. If your circle laughs at ambition or discourages discipline, it gets harder and harder to rise above your environment. You start to shrink your dreams to fit in rather than stretch your standards to reach out. But the right voices, they demand your best. They challenge you, stretch you, make you uncomfortable in all the right ways. Spend time with people whose standards are just a little higher than yours, whose habits are just a little stronger, whose dreams are just a little bigger. They won't let you settle. They'll remind you of who you can become. Remember, counsel is everywhere, but wisdom is rare. Be careful who you take advice from. Ask yourself, has this person built the kind of life I admire? Do they live by the values I respect? Are their results worth replicating? If the answer is no, be courteous, but be cautious. You can love people without letting them set the course for your life. Sometimes it's necessary to limit your time with certain voices. That doesn't mean you judge or condemn. It just means you value your future enough to protect your mind. Influence is like an investment. It compounds over time. Choose your influences as carefully as you would choose where to invest your money. Seek out mentors. Read the books of those who've gone further than you have. Spend time in the company of people who lift your eyes, who spark your thinking, who push you to become more than you are today. The next decade depends on the counsel you receive and the voices you trust. And don't forget, you're an influence too. Someone is watching you, learning from you, being shaped by your example. Raise your standards, not just for your sake, but for theirs. Become the kind of person others want to listen to. So, as you chart your course for the next 10 years, guard your mind. Listen well, choose wisely. The people you let speak into your life will help determine the person you become. Now, I want to talk about the real difference maker between average and exceptional: discipline. Over the years, people have asked about the secret ingredient to success, expecting to hear about talent or luck or some gift that others don't have. But the gap isn't talent, it's discipline. The decision to do what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it, is what builds credibility, results, and respect over a decade. Discipline is doing what you said you would do, long after the mood you set it in has faded. It's showing up day after day, even when there's no applause, no reward, no guarantee. Most people start with enthusiasm. Fewer finish with discipline. But those who do, those are the ones you notice 10 years down the road. It's easy to make promises in January and excuses in February. The difference is discipline. Everyone likes the idea of being disciplined, but not everyone likes the practice. Discipline is uncomfortable. It asks for sacrifice. It says no to temptation. But every time you choose discipline, you invest in a decade that pays dividends in health, in wealth, in relationships, in self-respect. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. But if you are the most disciplined, eventually you will rise. Discipline compounds. It starts small. A morning routine, a savings plan, a reading schedule. And